recall the past. Mental health, a fragile thread, but we'll find strength. Let love spread. Life's a climb, just take a step. Rise above, find your breath. In the darkness we will find a shining light to free our mind, to free our mind. Self-growth blooms like petals bloom, shedding tears will heal the wounds and the chaos. Let's find peace, embrace the pain, let it release.
Relax your mind. It's divine time.
Hello, hello, hello. This is your boy Donley Divine, and I am here with another amazing guest who is going to speak their truth and give us a little insight into their life with another story that we can learn from, that we can grow from, and also be able to influence others on a positive level. With me today, I have Michelle. You want to say hello?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, my name is Michelle Steiner.
And with it, I am going to pretty much sit back and let her do what she does.
All right. Thank you so much for having me on here. My name is Michelle Steiner. I live in Pennsylvania with my husband Ron and our two cats, Jack and Sparrow. And I work in a school as a disability writer. I work in a school as a paraeducator with students who have disabilities and some who don't. And I'm also a disability writer, speaker, and photographer. And I have a blog called Michelle's Mission. And I write about life with a learning disability. And I also get to feature my photography. And I also have a learning disability myself. I was diagnosed with having a learning disability whenever I was in kindergarten. My kindergarten teacher could see that I was struggling with things such as tying my shoes. Numbers were really difficult for me. And I was struggling not only academically, but socially. And I was my parents' first child, so they didn't really have a lot to base development on. So they recommended that I get tested for having a learning disability. Sure enough, I have one. At that time, it was just a blanket term. We didn't call it dyscalculia or anything else. I mean, really, the ones they were familiar with was dyslexia. And that was they knew I had some visual perception issues with my eye-hand coordination. But we didn't figure out that I had limited hand dexterity in both of my hands until I was an adult. The one thing they knew at that young age was I was not going to be a mathematician. We really understood that. And I had to repeat kindergarten the following year. And I was moved to a different school in our district. And it was really difficult for me at first. Those years were really hard. I can remember I just wanted to learn like my peers. I wanted to be accepted like they were. And learning and being accepted just seemed really impossible. I can remember putting a lot of effort into my work and I wasn't doing well. And I can remember thinking that life was always going to be difficult and my life would just be perfect if I didn't have a disability. So luckily, a lot of the specialty instruction they were giving me was helping me. I was able to be in regular ed classes for science, social studies, and for reading and English. And I had accommodations in those classes. I had to have the test read aloud to me. I had to also have extended test time so my brain could process the information. Socially, it was really difficult for me during those years as well. I can remember having a disability made me really stick out. I went to a very small conservative school district, and I couldn't blend in and I couldn't hide. Everybody knew I went to learning support. And a lot of the bullying began when I was really young. But as a child, it was in the grade school, it was more, well, I don't want to be your friend, or you're not going to be invited to my birthday party. As I got through school, academically, school got a lot easier for me. I was in all regular ed classes except for math. That was never a positive experience for me. And resource, where we would have a specialized study hall where I could go for my work along with getting my test read. But socially, it got a lot harder. A lot of the groups became a lot more defined, and I just didn't feel like I fit into any one of them. And one of the things that I did was I found a teen group and just a little bit outside of my school district. And I started hanging out with a lot of the peers from that, and they did art activities. Some of them drew, other ones like me like to write. Writing has always been a healing thing for me, and I wrote for their newsletter. And I found acceptance with a lot of these people. I was able to shed a lot of that reputation that I had that surrounded me ever since I was a young child as being the outcast. And I found that once I shared my story, that a lot of other people, they had learning disabilities too. And whenever that group stopped meeting, I reached out into another group in our community of an adult writing group. I was a teenager at that point. And that group got to see me grow, not only as a person, but as a writer. And we still meet 20 some years later, once a month, to talk about our writing. And we're in each other's lives. We've been at each other's weddings. We've been at graduations, and just a lot of things that has really shaped from that group as well. And I can remember another really challenging aspect during that time period was, what was I going to do after high school? I knew that I wanted to go to college, but a lot of people didn't think that I could handle it because of my math disability. I had a learning support teacher who told me that I couldn't go to college because of that. And she recommended a trade school, but nothing that really interested me at the trade school. So I was determined to go to college. And I did have a wonderful person who encouraged me. I had a student teacher that told me, you can go to college because you know how to study. And when I was at college and things were getting really difficult, sometimes her voice is what I heard, and that's what helped me get through a lot of it. I can also remember I was connected with an agency called Office for Vocational Rehabilitation, and they provide scholarships for people that have disabilities to be able to go to school. I went to school debt-free. They also provide job placement assistance, and all their testing they do is free. And in order for me to receive services, they tested me for having a learning disability again. And I've never been a great test taker, and my test scores were so low that a psychiatrist told me I would most likely not go beyond a community college. And hearing that was heartbreaking. I was already really nervous about starting college, and could I handle it? But I decided to go forward. And when I got to college, there was even more stigma. I had people that would say that using accommodations was cheating. And I didn't want to use them because I just didn't want that stigma. And that was a really big mistake because my grades dropped. I also had a college professor that told me I was going to have limited job choices because of my disability. And finally, there was a really great professor that just encouraged me to use accommodations. I was really struggling in her science class, and I was able to get through her class. I didn't do well, but I passed her class, and I was able to pass my other classes as well. I got an associate's degree in early childhood education. I moved out on my own, and that was really key for me because my learning disability does not let me drive. So I was living in a central location where I could walk and wherever else I needed to go. And I enjoyed having that independence because my parents lived in a pretty rural area. I was working at some temp jobs with kids, and I loved it, and life was good, but I always wanted more for myself. And be careful what you wish for, because sometimes it comes true. And for a while, I had to move back in with my parents. for financial reasons. The job I was with was downsizing, and I thought this is the right time to try to go back to university. And I found the perfect program for me that had the least amount of science and math possible. It had a program that interested me, and it had disability accommodations. And the really beautiful thing about going back to school was I had the maturity of that I didn't have whenever I was my first year at community college. So I knew that I was going to have to use the accommodations and advocate for myself. And I had experience doing that. And what that helped me to do was be able to ask for extended test time and to go up and just talk to my professors. And it was definitely worth it. I made Dean's List for a semester, my grades improved, and I was able to graduate with a bachelor's degree despite being told that I couldn't do it. After I went throughout college, it was time to figure out what else I wanted to do. And it took a while for me to find the right job for me at the school that I'm at. I had some other places that said they were disability friendly, but they just were not the right fit for me. And I've been at my job for 13 years working with students. And I find it so rewarding to be able to go in there and be able to help them and just work with them and make a difference. I show them not only how they can do their work, but how we can advocate for themselves as well. And they all know, do not ask me for help on math or they'll soon find out, because that is just not an area that I can help them with. But I'm good with reading and helping them to edit. I can do that pretty well. I also, over the past couple of years, have had experience with writing. Writing has always been really healing for me, as I said before. I can remember my dad found a dinosaur story I wrote in 3rd grade and said, wow, this is really good. And hearing that encouraged me to write more. And with my writing group as a teenager, I wrote a lot of bad poetry and some other really cringeworthy things that I don't think I'd read today. But I can remember I had a friend that encouraged me to write about having a learning disability. And I was not ready to do that as a teenager. I wasn't ready as a young adult. But I can remember when I met my husband and we bought our first house after we got married, I can remember I could not unlock the door because my hand dexterity is very limited in both hands. And I was really frustrated. And there was a prompt on the Mighty, which is a source for people with disabilities to be able to connect with each other and share stories and experiences. And one of the prompts was, what is a seemingly easy task for you? I mean, for other people, but it's really hard for you with your disability. And I wrote about that and I got that published, and just hearing, I got a lot of response that was really positive. And it was another really healing thing that I've done in my life. And that encouraged me to write more stories. And I had more connections with other people, and I reached out to other publications and got things published. And that also encouraged me to start my own blog. I started a blog called Michelle's Mission, where I write about life with a learning disability. And I also started to feature my photography. I'm not able to drive, so when I go on a lot of my walks, people will say, I'll take pictures of flowers, and people will tell me, well, you bring out details that I would have missed in a flower. And a lot of times I'll be with my husband and I'll say, honey, did you see that? And he'll be like, I'm focused on the road. And I get to go and see a lot of details that I would miss if I was in the driver's seat. And later I get a chance to take that picture when I'm walking somewhere or don't have a ride. And that's an opportunity that I would miss with having a disability. And I used to wonder what good could ever come out of having one. But now I look at it and I can just see that there's just so much beauty that I would have missed if I didn't have one.
So with it, you said your blog is called Michelle's Mission?
Yes.
Michelle's Mission blog? Is that correct?
It's Michelle's Mission. It's at michellesmission.net. Yes.
.net? Okay. All right. I need to edit that.
Okay.
That is amazing. So quick question. What was the biggest adjustment in life for you?
I think the biggest adjustment in my life that I had to do was that transitioning from high school into college. I think that was really an adjustment for me, because whenever I was in school, uh, in high school and elementary school, it was a lot of my parents advocating for me, and it was the school that had a plan that I was to follow. And when I was an adult, that was an adjustment that I had to use my voice and to be able to speak up for myself.
I love the fact that you said you had to actually use your voice and speak out. I feel like that's one of the. So when I was in elementary school, we had a girl. Her name was, I think, Jeannie or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
She had a learning disability, and with it, other kids would like kind of make fun of her and everything. And I was like, that's kind of messed
Mm-hmm.
up. I don't know. I'm weird. Like I don't get along with people like normal people, but it's
Yeah.
like I'm real empathetic and apathetic towards other
Mm-hmm.
like everything else, like animals, plants, and all that stuff. So it's like when it came to her, like I got along pretty well with her. And I mean, she would have like anger tantrums and everything. But for me, it was fascinating to like kind of try and understand her mind or what's going through her mind at these times and stuff. So I mean, it really gave me a different outlook on the world.
Mm-hmm.
With it, the thing that got me was she would always say no. And as I grew up, I ended up learning about boundaries. So I was like, okay, she was pretty much laying her boundaries and standing firm on them at those times, which at the time I don't think I knew or any other kids really knew. But she would always be
Mm-hmm.
like, no, no, no. And with it, I mean, like other people would look at her like she's crazy. And when I look back at it now, I'm just like, yo, she was probably more emotionally intelligent than the rest of us at sixth grade. Like, believe it or not. But that's crazy. I love the fact that you were able to use your voice and actually express yourself that way. Then at the same time, I also got to say congrats on your first publish. That's amazing. That's pretty dope. That's like the way that you uncovered your talent. They gave you heard a topic and it spoke to you and you wrote about it and everybody was like, I imagine everybody's like, yo, that's dope.
Right. Yeah, because a lot of people were that knew my story. They were
Mhm.
happy that I did write about it. Yep. And yeah, a lot of people knew that was my dream ever since I was young.
Okay, that's what's up. Yeah, I know you said that you wrote some poems that you're not too happy about, and you also wrote some cringeworthy things. Part of me is kind of like, yo, I kind of want to hear one of the old ones that you did. Like, you have any on you?
No, I'd have to look up that one up.
I'm just saying, like, it would be pretty dope. Like, if, for example, like on
Uh-huh.
the blog, if you showed where you started and where you are now, that growth, and because I mean, a lot of people,
Mhm.
for example, I did an episode with a gentleman who has autism, and
Mhm.
I had asked him the same question I'm about to ask you, actually,
Okay.
and he expressed to me that over time, like he learns how to cope with certain things, and I'm like, okay, because I feel like, all right, first of all, I hate saying normal because when it comes down to it, the word normal is based off the majority. The majority is
Right.
like me and
Mhm.
some other people. But I'm like, ultimately, I tell people, I'm like, I feel like people with like autism and dyslexia, I feel like they are what people are supposed to be like because the way that they love, like people who are on the spectrum, the way that they love and the way that they operate, I'm like, if they all have like that one thing that they mastered, whether they want
Mhm.
to, like whether they try to, or it's
Mhm.
brought to them, they end up mastering that. And I'm like, they're a single gear in a clock. And when all the gears come together and work together, I'm like, the world will be a better place. I'm like, it's us individuals who we call normal who are messing things up because we want to dip and dab in everything, you know. But that's my opinion. So that's why I don't like the word
Right.
normal. But when it comes down to it, he was saying that listening to him, I realized I was like, you know what? When they say that people have a learning disability or that they're on the spectrum and everything, they speak about it as if these people don't grow mentally over time, you know? And I'm like, they do. Like, y'all
Mhm.
really do. I mean, on all honesty, the amount of things that y'all go through, I feel like that puts y'all in a headspace that ultimately is greater than what the majority go through because y'all have constant what's the word I'm looking for? Battles that you're going through to ultimately at the end of your life win that war, you know? But the question that I wanted to ask you next was, would you say that bullying has impacted your life in any way?
I think what it has made me is a more empathetic person. I can now like listen to a lot of my students when they talk about being bullied, and I can kind of give them some advice that has helped me and may help them as well. I can remember I had a student that was being picked on that I was working with one-on-one. And I told her, I said, well, we can report it if you want, but this happened in a lunchroom where she didn't have, nobody wanted to sit with her or was having some problems with some girls. I said, well, why don't we just try moving your seat? And she did end up reporting it, which was fine. And that was one of the things the principal supported as well. I mean, we try to give them just some other ways that they can handle it. And I think if I didn't have that, I wouldn't know how to handle situations like that. And I think even today, that has made me a strong person that can handle whenever sometimes I may not be accepted or something doesn't work out. I'm able to handle a lot of those situations. And if I didn't go through it, then I wouldn't be able to handle it today.
Okay. Definitely, I can definitely see that, because when I was younger, I've seen some people get bullied. Like ultimately, the reason I had originally even joined the gang was to fight for those who those who wouldn't fight for themselves. And it's funny, my wife tells me all the time, she's like, you got like a anime character superhero little thing to you. I was like, what do you mean? She was like, just the way that you think and like the things that you do. She's like, it's so pure hearted, but you're always getting attacked. And I'm just like, okay. I mean, because with me, I'm like, I don't look down on anybody. If anything, I look at them to learn, because the things that they're going through, it might not be things that I have gone through. And I like to learn from other people's experiences, so that way I don't have to make the same mistake, you know? And I mean, even with my kids, like I write in a little journal of my life lessons so I can pass it on to them, so that way they can exceed where I finish in my life and they can go way past, and their legacy can be even further, you know? And the only way to do that is to learn from one another. I'm like, every person has something that they can learn from another person. Everybody is teaching, whether they're trying to or not. And I mean, children are the best example of that. They're always observing and always watching. Even if you don't think that they are, you mess around, say something, they come around the corner. Fuck, you know? So, but with you said you have a bachelor's degree. That's a major accomplishment. What did you get a bachelor's in?
Community programming for Americans with disabilities. They call it a transition specialist now, but it is a service end of special education. So that was definitely something that I love doing, and it prepared me for the job that I do in the school, but it also prepared me for writing and learning about my own disability.
Ooh, and you keep saying disability. Do you mind if I ask, what is your diagnosis?
Sure. I have dyscalculia, which is a math learning disability. I have trouble with how numbers work. I don't read numbers backwards, but it's really difficult for me to forget the steps in a problem. I can't read the face of a clock or a ruler, and it's hard for me to budget and know how much money to leave for a tip. I also have visual perception issues, which that is not in my eyes, that is in my brain. So that affects my reaction time, and I'm not able to drive. And gym class was a nightmare for me. Anytime a ball would come in my field of vision, I'll flinch, and that is, and I can trip over air. So that was hard for me. And I also have limited hand dexterity in both of my hands. We didn't find that out until I was an adult. We knew my handwriting was really bad when I was younger, but I can remember why. Then finally, once I found out, the light bulb went off. That's why things would drop out of my hands. That's why it's hard for me to open up jars or to unlock doors or to lock them, because the hand dexterity.
Okay. Now, I do want to say this real quick. There's a saying that people with like the ugliest handwriting are often the most intelligent. That's why doctors have that script. Just saying, just letting you know, okay? So don't think that's a bad thing.
I
Everybody,
agree.
everybody else sees it and they're like, oh, this must be a very smart woman. So what I'm going to do now is I would love to kind of just have more of a little. I'm gonna switch it into more of a conversation because
Okay.
when it comes down to it, you really get to learn more about a person by really just talking to them, you know. And I mean
Yeah.
that's one thing that I really enjoy doing, to where it always ends up bringing a smile to both of our faces, just learning about each other by just conversing
Mhm.
rather than being interrogated with 50 million questions, you know. Hey, I'm prior military. Like, I don't like
Yeah.
that feeling. So with it, you growing up, pause 1 second. So you growing up, the things that you have gone through, how do you feel that you can, well, how do you impact your students' lives on a day-to-day basis that you end up coming across as you're teaching?
A lot of times I work with sixth graders, so a lot of times it's like hearing a recording of myself at that age. I hate my learning disability. I wish I didn't have an IEP. I don't feel very smart. And I get that chance to go and tell them that they have a disability or that their brain is wired differently and they're not dumb and they just learn differently. And sometimes I get to share my experience too. And I think sometimes that helps because I understand what it's like to be that age and to go through it and to be scared. And I just think that sometimes that a lot of people don't understand. And if I didn't go through that, I don't think I would have the empathy to be able to do the job I do now.
She said the empathy to do the job that you do now. I heard that when you find something that you enjoy doing, you will never work another day in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that what you're doing is a job, job, aka just over broke, or would you say that that is your life mission?
I would say both are my life's mission. I think it's
Mhm.
helping other people, whether that's being at work and helping a student to be able to be successful, whether that's reading a test to them or listening to them talk about things in their lives. I think that's definitely my mission. And I also think it's the mission of my blog too, because I love writing about having a disability and connecting with
Mhm.
other people and sharing my photography and just being able to have that connection. So I do think that that is definitely what I'm doing is my mission.
Now, with it as well, sorry, my kids just screamed in the back. I'm not even sure if you could
It's
hear
okay.
that. That caught me off guard. I was like, what are they doing? When did you make up your mind that you wanted to go into the degree that you have and that what you're doing now is ultimately what you see yourself doing for the rest of your life?
I knew that I definitely wanted to work with kids
Hmm.
in some capacity whenever I was a teenager. And I knew that I definitely wanted to do something with writing from the time I was in elementary school. So I was able to find a way to be able to do that very young in my life.
That's good. And I mean, when you say very young in your life, you're talking about like around what age?
I had to be, well, the writing that came first. So I knew
Hmm.
that that was about third grade or second or third. So I was like about 8 or 10 when
Oh, wow.
I knew that I wanted to write. And the part about being working with kids, I knew that I
Yeah.
definitely wanted to do that when I was in high school and I was a teenager. I think I might have wanted to do psychology at one point. And then I thought, oh, I want to work at, definitely be a teacher. But then I knew that going in with a lot of the courses that required math and other
Hmm.
things that I just didn't think a certified teacher was a good option. So I found a program to do early childhood. And then later I found one that encompassed adults and kids that had disabilities.
That's pretty dope. And I love the fact that you were
Mhm.
even able to find that because I don't think that's something that most people would even hear about. Like, do they have an actual term for what it is that you do?
For what I do, I'm a paraprofessional at our school. It's a teacher's aide, but that is our term, and they have different terminology for different schools and different districts. But ours is called paraprofessionals, and we go in and just be able to help and work with students. And the job that I do outside of work, I coined the one disability writer. I haven't heard a lot of people say, I've never heard that term before, but I said that that's how I describe myself. And I blog and yeah.
Do you do any community service as well?
I work as the vice president for our Butler Writers Guild. That is our writing group that meets for 20 some years. I've also have volunteered at our art center in Butler. I haven't done as much, but I volunteered for them. And that is actually how I ended up meeting my husband.
You already know what I'm about to say, right?
Yes.
Come on, give us the nitty gritty. Give us the nitty gritty. I want to hear this one. I want to hear this one. So how did you meet him?
I was volunteering at our art center and I was walking down the street and I had a red dress on and my husband was driving and he goes, wow, who's that girl in that red dress? And it turns, he saw me go into the art center and that's where he was going that night. He was there with my mother-in-law and he was playing guitar that evening. He goes, oh, she's going to the art center. And then it turns out, oh, she knows this person and we have mutual friends that they just haven't seen him for a long time. And then when we got to know each other, we found out that we were actually at previous events and we just didn't notice each other until it was the right moment.
You said the right moment. Was it like a Disney movie thing where it's like Little Mermaid relationship?
I would say because there was just times where there was a flyer, a poetry reading years ago, and I got my name in at the last minute. So actually I didn't get my name in it because I said I was going to do it at the last minute. And I said, he kept one of the flyers and I said, I was at this thing. And he's like, I was there too. And then I'll have friends that are like, don't you remember when he came to this writing meeting years ago? And I'm like, no, I don't remember that. And it was just like we were blind to each other because that just wasn't the right time. He was in another relationship and I was just finding out who I was in life. So it just wasn't the right opportunity. And he also was an answer to a prayer, and he was part of a dream that a friend of mine had. I was in some really broken relationships before I met him, and I can remember just praying, and I said, God, don't send me anybody until it's the right person. And he didn't. I did maybe have one dud at that point, or one thing that wasn't going to work out, but it didn't really go that far. And the dream was a friend of mine said, I had this dream that you got married. I don't know who the guy is. It wasn't me. And you were standing in front of the courthouse wearing a vintage wedding dress. And the vintage wedding dress, I would say, because everyone knew that's my style. And I didn't think much of it. But when we got our pictures, we had our reception where we met at, and it was near the courthouse. And we went to take pictures in the park. And when we got the pictures back, I am standing there with my husband, and the courthouse my friend was talking about was in the background. So I just think that's just, yeah, it was just like meant to be.
Hey, if I'm not mistaken, isn't there a saying, he's never there when you want him, but he's always right on time?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
There you go. There you go. Prayers go up and the answers come down. That worked out great. That's crazy, though, that your friend literally had a dream about all this right there at the courthouse and in a vintage. Did you tell your friend? Was like, hey,
I did. He's like,
does this look familiar?
Yeah, I know.
He should. Yeah, that is pretty dope. I like that. I like that. So with it, you said he saw you in a red dress. Was like, yo, who is that? And then he ended up popping up at one of your little poetry slams.
Yeah, it was an open mic night, and I was volunteering that evening, it might have been an art opening too. But yeah, I was just volunteering and not even thinking about it. I think that was the thing too. I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to meet this person and we're going to, And in fact, that relationship took some time. We became friends before anything else.
Honestly, being friends is the best way to go and to lead into any type of relationship. I mean, in this day and age, there's a lot of people who just jump from relationship to relationship and
Yeah.
they're so quick to call the other person a partner or whatever. I'm like taking that time to heal and really get to know an individual so that we can figure out, like, do I even like you? You know, because there's a lot of times where it's like you'll go on a date with a person, you're like, I really don't want to be here, or either you'll already be in a relationship with somebody and you're just like, how did it make it this far?
Yeah.
Because y'all didn't
Exactly.
y'all weren't even friends before, y'all just rushed into things. So that is really good. So I understand why y'all relationship is so strong and why he is your husband. When you get a chance, tell him he's the luckiest man I never met. Okay.
Oh, well, thank you. I will tell that.
So is there anything that you would want to say to any listeners?
I just want to encourage people to know what they want and to be able to find a way to do that. And to remember that success doesn't always come in the package that you expect. Sometimes it comes in something even better.
Hey, I like that. It's not copywritten, is it?
No, not yet.
Okay, cool. I'm already steal it before it is. And with it, is this the correct website? michellesmission.net?
Yes, it is.
All right, cool. Well, I really enjoyed that. I'm still honestly going to talk, so I don't think this is the end yet, just so you know. You said you really enjoy dealing with children. When you're talking with the kids, do you feel like you're looking at a younger you at sometimes?
Yeah, yes, definitely. I do feel like that's a younger me because a lot of them have learning disabilities. Some of them have the same kind as mine. So it is like looking at a younger version of myself. And I try to remember what I needed to hear at that age and to be able to tell them that.
Okay, so I was about to ask another thing, but you already just hit that, the telling them what you need to hear at that age. Do they do some things that you have done as well to where you're able to kind of just tell them what's going to happen next if they continue doing that or if they don't fix those types of things?
A lot of times I'll prepare them for the future. I know that sometimes I used to come in being a little more overwhelming, like, oh, if you don't study, you're not going to do great. And some of them, you're not going to go to college. And a lot of them say, well, I don't want to go to school. So what I try to tell them is, I don't know what their future holds. I don't know what they're going to use, what they're not going to be able to use, but I try to give them some resources that can help them and just tell them that there is some resources and some help that can help them guide them along with what they want to do with their life, and how important it is to know how you learn and to use disability accommodations to advocate for yourself. I try to do a lot of those to give them those resources and to think about the future and what they would like to do.
If you could go back in time and change anything, what would you change?
I think some of the things that I would change is my attitude, because I can remember a time where I was really negative and I believe what everybody told
It's
me I
part of being
couldn't do.
human.
Yeah, exactly. And there was just that time that if I would have just relaxed and went forward and put in the hard work that I had to do, and I knew I had to do that and had the motivation, I think I just would have enjoyed the experience a lot better. And I just try to remember that even today when I hit a rough patch, that things are going to get better, and to just have that attitude that that things are going to work out, and to be positive, and that helps me.
So positivity, I mean, there's no way to even talk down on positivity. Positivity
Yeah.
can uplift you in a dark time. It can really put you back on the right path. Has there ever been moments to where, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, okay? I mean, I hit the goods and the bads. I'm full spectrum. Has there ever been times where you kind of just sit there and you're having a very difficult time just finding the light again?
Yeah, sometimes it can be really difficult to see a lot of the light, and to be able to find that. I've had those moments where I never thought things were going to get better. And a lot of times I wish I would have had that voice sometimes, of somebody to tell me that things are going to get easier. You can't see it right now, but it's going to get a lot better. And there's going to be a purpose for a lot of this pain. And I also think it's always more empowering for me to focus on the things I can do and the things I can change and control rather than focusing on the things I can't. Because when I focus on what I can do, I just feel so much more joy and empowerment than when I focus on the things that just simply aren't going to happen for me.
If for anybody who's going through a dark time, can you give them the best tip that helps you in those moments?
I think some of the thing is just some of the best tip to help them out is to go out and reach out to family, reach out to friends. Reach out to your higher power. I know that one of the things that really helped me was my friends, because they couldn't be they couldn't fix my disability, but they could be a friend to me, and we could go out on the weekend and have fun and be able to talk about it, but also to share some laughs and some good experiences and some encouragement. And I would just encourage people to reach out to a support system to be able to help you.
All right, I'm gonna grab the links and everything from you as well to go ahead and put into the show notes.
Sure.
With that, you have your blog, michellesmission.net. That's
Yes.
NET for anybody. You talk about your disability and things that you've gone through throughout life, and also you have some of your published work on there too. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
All right. So I'm gonna have that in the show notes as well, so anybody can go check that out also. It was really an honor talking to you. I'm not even gonna act like I can pronounce your diagnosis. That I've never heard of that before. Like, in all honesty, when I message you afterwards, I want you to type it so I can actually spell it correctly and look more into that, because I've never heard that before.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to that you have me be a part of this.
Hey, I thank you for reaching out, because like I said before, without you, this wouldn't even be possible. I mean, I love for people to come on and tell their story, to shine lights into other people's lives. And you never know who may be going through the same thing that you are. They might have a different outlook on it, And with that, they could be struggling with some things that you've already gone through. So therefore, you speaking about it and how you overcame it can give them that extra oomph, that will to continue going, I'm like, you never know who you may impact in a positive way. And I have 3 rules that I live by on a day-to-day. Every day I try to influence someone on a positive level. Every day I try and bring a smile to at least one person's face. And every day I try and learn something new. And I mean, definitely today I hit all 3, because you definitely taught me something new. And once I get the spelling of that, I'm going to learn some more. All right.
Okay, sounds great.
But with that, this was another episode of Divine Time, Speak Your Truth. I had Michelle, and she gave us a lot of good things. Thank you.
Thank you.